Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today we'll be exploring the electrical activity of the brain, especially as it relates to sleep.
Sounds electrifying.
We've got a fantastic physiology handout from Dr. Rasha Eldeeb to guide us. Get ready to uncover the secrets of your brain's electrical symphony as we explore brain waves, sleep stages, and even delve into some of those curious sleep disorders.
I'm ready to decode those brainwaves.
Let's kick things off with evoked cortical potentials. They might sound a bit intimidating, but they're really just your brain's way of responding to the world around you. All those sights, sounds, textures, smells, and tastes that make up your sensory experience.
You can think of them as electrical echoes of your senses. When sensory information enters your brain, it triggers this cascade of electrical activity in specific regions, kind of like a neural signature for each sensation.
Oh, interesting. So it's like each sense has its own unique electrical fingerprint.
That's a great way to put it.
That's pretty cool. But I'm guessing it's not quite that simple, is it?
You're right, it's a bit more nuanced. We actually have two types of evoked potentials, primary and secondary.
Okay, what's the difference?
Primary evoked potentials are like express routes, directly connecting sensory input to those specific brain areas responsible for processing that sense. Say you hear a sudden loud noise.
Like a car backfire.
Exactly. That signal zips straight to your auditory cortex.
So it's like a dedicated hotline for each sense.
Right. But then we have those secondary evoked potentials.
What makes them different?
This is where things get really interesting. These involve a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS for short. It acts like an air traffic control tower for your brain, filtering and prioritizing all the incoming sensory information. The RAS decides what needs immediate attention and what can just fade into the background noise.
So the RAS is like the brain's bouncer, deciding which sensory information gets VIP access and which gets stuck in the general admission line.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, these potentials have specific names depending on which sense is being stimulated.
Oh, like what?
We have SSIPs for touch, AEPs for hearing, and VEPs for vision.
Wait a minute. Those sound familiar. Didn't we come across those when we talked about brain imaging techniques in our last deep dive?
You've got a sharp memory. You're absolutely right. These evoked potentials, especially those secondary ones, play a key role in those brain imaging techniques.
Wow, it's all coming together. I'm already starting to see how interconnected everything is in the brain. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, how do we actually measure these electrical signals?
Well, I'm sure you've heard of an EEG.
An EGG, yeah, the electroencephalogram.
Right. It's a cornerstone of brain research.
It's a non-invasive technique that allows us to record the brain's electrical activity using electrodes placed on the scalp, right?
Precisely.
So it's like listening in on the brain's electrical chatter. I've always pictured it as this mysterious high-tech procedure, but it sounds surprisingly straightforward.
It might seem simpler than many people imagine, but the information it provides is incredibly rich. EEGs allow us to see the brain's activity in the form of brainwaves.
Brainwaves.
Yes, those rhythmic fluctuations in electrical potential that reflect the synchronized activity of billions of neurons.
Okay, so we're talking about those alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves we always hear about. Those seem to get a lot of attention, especially when it comes to sleep and relaxation techniques.
They're the rock stars of brainwaves.
So are each of them associated with different states of consciousness and brain activity?
Exactly. For example, alpha waves are prominent when you're relaxed and your eyes are closed. Think meditating or just about to drift off to sleep.
Ah, so those are the chill vibes everyone's always talking about. No wonder meditation apps are so popular these days. But what about those beta waves? I know they're associated with being more alert and focused.
Precisely. Beta waves are the dominant rhythm when you're awake, alert, and engaged with the world.
Engaged.
Yeah, think active thinking, problem solving, decision making.
So if I'm struggling to focus and my brain feels like it's in a fog, maybe it's because my beta waves are taking a siesta.
It's possible. There are lots of things that can influence brainwave activity.
Like what?
Stress, sleep deprivation, diet. But generally speaking, when your beta waves are firing on all cylinders, you're likely to feel more alert and focused.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got relaxed alpha waves and energetic beta waves. What about theta and delta? They seem to lurk in the more mysterious realms of sleep and deep relaxation.
Theta waves are fascinating because they kind of bridge the gap between wakefulness and sleep.
Really?
Yeah, they're prominent during those drowsy states when you're drifting off to sleep.
You mean those moments when you're not quite asleep but not quite awake?
Exactly. You might experience those hypnagogic jerks.
Like those sudden muscle spasms that sometimes make you jolt awake.
Yeah, or you might catch glimpses of dreamlike images or thoughts, almost like daydreams. But theta waves also show up during deep meditation and states of heightened creativity.
So if I'm trying to tap into my creative flow or solve a problem that's been bugging me, maybe I should try inducing some theta waves.
It couldn't hurt. Many people find that practices like meditation and mindfulness can help shift their brainwave patterns towards slower rhythms, potentially enhancing relaxation and creativity.
Well, that gives me something to think about.
Mhm.
Now, what about those delta waves? They're the heavyweights of the sleep world, right?
Uh,
Associated with deep, dreamless sleep.
that's the common perception, but it's not entirely accurate. Delta waves are indeed the dominant rhythm during those deep, slow-wave sleep stages when your body is most relaxed and your brain is busy with essential restorative processes. But even during those deep stages, you're still dreaming. You just don't tend to remember those dreams as vividly.
Hold on. So even when we think we're in dreamless sleep, our brains are still weaving those nocturnal narratives. But if we're not remembering those delta wave dreams, what's the point? Are they just random neural firings, or do they serve a purpose?
That's a question that has puzzled scientists and philosophers for ages. We don't have all the answers, but some researchers believe that dreams, even those we don't remember, play a role in memory consolidation, emotional processing, and even creativity. It's as if our brains use those dream states to sort through the day's experiences, make sense of our emotions, and even spark new ideas.
So maybe those forgotten dreams are like the brain's overnight cleaning crew, tidying up the mental clutter and preparing us for the day ahead.
That's a great analogy. Speaking of sleep and its various stages, did you know that there's a fascinating connection between these stages and those sleep disorders you mentioned earlier?
That's right. We've been so engrossed in the world of brainwaves that we haven't even scratched the surface of sleep disorders. But before we dive into that, I'm curious about something.
What's that?
We've been talking about how these different brainwaves ebb and flow during sleep.
Huh.
But what about when things go wrong? Are there conditions where these brainwave patterns get disrupted?
Absolutely. One condition where those brainwaves can get a bit out of sync is epilepsy.
Epilepsy.
Yes. It's characterized by those sudden bursts of electrical activity in the brain.
Sudden bursts.
Yeah, resulting in seizures.
So it's like a sudden electrical storm in the brain, disrupting the normal flow of brainwaves. That sounds pretty intense.
And I know there are different types of seizures, right? Each with its own set of symptoms.
You're right. The type of seizure depends on where in the brain the electrical disturbance originates and how widely it spreads.
Oh, I see.
For example, grand mal seizures involve the entire brain, leading to a loss of consciousness and convulsions. On the other hand, petit mal seizures are more localized and might only cause a brief lapse in awareness, maybe a subtle twitching of the muscles.
So it's like an electrical short circuit that can affect different parts of the brain's circuitry. But what causes these disruptions in the first place?
Well, that's a complex question. The causes of epilepsy can vary widely.
So there's no one answer.
Not really. Some cases are linked to genetic factors, while others are triggered by things like head injuries or infections, even strokes. In many cases, the exact cause remains a mystery. This is all so incredibly complex. It's amazing how these tiny electrical signals can have such a profound impact on our consciousness, our movements, and our overall health. I'm already starting to appreciate just how intricate and delicate the brain's electrical symphony truly is.
And we're only just beginning to tune in. There's so much more to discover about the brain's electrical rhythms and the secrets they hold and how they shape our experience of the world.
Well, I'm definitely ready to explore further. Now that we have a better understanding of brainwaves and how they can be disrupted in conditions like epilepsy, let's delve into the fascinating world of sleep stages. Ready to take a journey through the night?
Lead the way. I'm eager to see what insights we uncover as we venture deeper into the land of dreams. All right, so let's map out this nocturnal journey through the brain. Picture this. You're wide awake, your brain is buzzing with those beta waves we talked about earlier, fully immersed in the day's activities. We call this alert wakefulness.
So that's my brain in overdrive, juggling work deadlines, social media, and trying to remember where I left my keys. Sounds about right.
Exactly. But as the day winds down and you start to relax, maybe curl up with a good book or listen to some calming music, those beta waves begin to slow down.
Yeah.
They make way for the more relaxed alpha waves. You enter resting wakefulness, a state of tranquil awareness.
Ah, that feeling of unwinding after a long day when the mental chatter starts to quiet down and you can finally just breathe a sigh of relief. It's like slipping into a warm bath for the mind.
Precisely. And as you continue to relax, your eyelids growing heavy, you transition into the first stage of sleep, what we call light sleep. Here, your brain waves slow down even further, with those fleeting theta waves starting to emerge, like whispers from the subconscious.
So it's like dipping my toes into the waters of sleep, but not quite diving in yet.
Exactly. You might experience those hypnagogic jerks.
Those sudden muscle spasms that sometimes jolt you awake.
Yeah, those. Or you might see those dreamlike images or random thoughts, almost like daydreams.
Oh, those hypnagogic jerks. I always thought I was the only one who experienced those. They're so strange. It's like my brain is tripping over its own feet as it tries to switch into sleep mode.
They're surprisingly common, and while we don't know exactly what causes them, they're generally harmless. But as you drift further into slumber, you descend into stages 2, 3, and 4, what we collectively call slow wave sleep. And this is where those delta waves, the slow rolling waves of deep sleep, take center stage.
So this is where things get really quiet in the brain, like a deep, peaceful ocean.
Exactly. During slow wave sleep, your body is deeply restful, your heart rate and breathing slow down, your muscles relax, and your brain is busy with some essential housekeeping tasks like consolidating memories, repairing cellular damage, and replenishing energy stores.
So it's like the brain's overnight spa treatment, a chance to rejuvenate and recharge after a long day. But I thought we weren't supposed to dream during slow wave sleep. Isn't that what they call dreamless sleep?
That's a common misconception. You actually do dream during slow wave sleep. It's just that those dreams tend to be less vivid and less memorable than the ones you experience during REM sleep. It's as if your brain is processing information and emotions on a deeper, more subconscious level.
So it's like the brain is working behind the scenes, sorting through the day's files and archiving them away in long-term storage.
Interesting. But what about that other type of sleep? REM sleep. That's where the really wild dreams happen, right? The ones that leave you wondering if you've stepped into an alternate reality.
You got it. Rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep, is a fascinating and paradoxical stage of sleep. It's characterized by bursts of brain activity that resemble wakefulness, rapid eye movements beneath closed lids, and those vivid, often bizarre dreams that you're more likely to remember.
So it's like the brain is putting on a late-night show, complete with special effects and a surreal storyline.
Exactly. But here's the catch. During REM sleep, your muscles are essentially paralyzed, preventing you from acting out those dreams. It's a safety mechanism to protect you from harm. That's a relief. I wouldn't want to be sleepwalking through my dreams and ending up in a real-life predicament. But speaking of sleepwalking, didn't we mention that earlier as a sleep disorder? I'm curious, how does that fit into all of this? Does it happen during REM sleep?
Actually, sleepwalking, also known as somnambulism, primarily occurs during those deep, slow-wave sleep stages, not during REM sleep.
Wait, really? So it's not about acting out dreams. What's going on then?
It seems that sleepwalking might involve a kind of incomplete arousal from slow-wave sleep.
Incomplete arousal.
Yeah, the brain is partially awake, enough to initiate movement, but not enough to be fully conscious or aware of the surroundings.
So it's like the brain is stuck in a twilight zone between sleep and wakefulness. That's pretty eerie. And I've heard that sleepwalking is more common in children. Is there a reason for that?
That's right. Children spend a greater proportion of their sleep time in those deep, slow-wave sleep stages, which might explain why sleepwalking is more prevalent in younger years.
Okay, so we've got sleepwalking happening during slow-wave sleep and vivid dreaming during REM sleep. But I'm still wondering, why do we sleep in the first place? What's the purpose of all this nocturnal activity?
That's a question that has intrigued scientists and philosophers for centuries. And while we've made significant strides in understanding the biological mechanisms of sleep, the ultimate why remains a bit of a mystery.
So we know how sleep works, but we're not entirely sure why we do it. That's intriguing.
Exactly. But we do have several fascinating theories that attempt to explain the purpose of sleep.
Oh, like what?
Well, one prominent theory is the restorative theory, which suggests that sleep is essential for our bodies to repair and rejuvenate themselves.
That makes intuitive sense. It's like giving our bodies a chance to catch up and recharge after a long day. But is it just about physical restoration?
It seems that sleep also plays a crucial role in cognitive function. memory consolidation, and emotional processing. Another theory is the energy conservation theory, proposing that sleep evolved as a way to conserve energy during periods when we're less efficient at things like foraging for food or avoiding predators.
So it's like our ancestors were basically hitting the pause button on their energy expenditure during times when it was less advantageous to be active.
Precisely. And then there's the synaptic homeostasis hypothesis, which suggests that sleep helps to downscale the strength of synapses, those connections between neurons that have been strengthened throughout the day.
So it's like the brain is pruning back the neural overgrowth, keeping things tidy and efficient.
Exactly. This pruning process is thought to be essential for maintaining optimal brain function and preventing information overload.
It's amazing to think that all of this is happening while we sleep. Our brains are busy repairing, recharging, consolidating memories, and even tidying up our neural networks. It's like an overnight construction crew working tirelessly to keep everything running smoothly. But what happens when those construction crews go on strike? We talked about sleepwalking earlier, but what about other sleep disorders? What causes them?
Sleep disorders can arise from a variety of factors, ranging from genetic predispositions to environmental stressors to underlying medical conditions. One common sleep disorder is insomnia, characterized by difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or both.
Oh, I know that one all too well. Those nights when you're tossing and turning, staring at the ceiling and feeling like you'll never drift off to sleep, it's the worst.
It's incredibly frustrating, and it can have a significant impact on your daytime functioning.
Yeah.
It can leave you feeling exhausted, irritable, and unable to focus. Insomnia can be caused by a variety of factors.
Factors like?
Things like stress, anxiety, depression, certain medications, and even poor sleep habits.
So it's not just about having a racing mind at night. There could be other underlying issues at play.
Exactly. It's important to rule out any medical conditions or medications that might be contributing to insomnia before exploring other treatment options. Another sleep disorder we mentioned earlier is sleep apnea, a condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep.
I've heard that sleep apnea can be quite serious. What causes it?
Sleep apnea is often caused by a blockage in the airway.
A blockage.
In the airway.
Right, either due to the relaxation of the throat muscles during sleep or to physical obstruction,
Obstructions
like enlarged tonsils or adenoids. This blockage prevents air from flowing freely into the lungs, leading to those pauses in breathing.
So it's like the brain is temporarily forgetting to breathe.
It's not so much that the brain forgets to breathe. It's more like the physical obstruction prevents breathing from occurring smoothly. These pauses in breathing can disrupt sleep.
Disrupted how?
Well, they can lead to daytime sleepiness, fatigue, and even more serious health problems if left untreated. That's scary. I can see why it's so important to get diagnosed and treated if you suspect you might have sleep apnea. And then there's narcolepsy, which I've always found particularly intriguing. It seems so sudden and unpredictable. Did you mention that it might be related to a specific neurotransmitter?
You're right. Narcolepsy is a neurological disorder characterized by excessive daytime sleepiness and sudden uncontrollable sleep attacks. Research suggests that a deficiency in a neurotransmitter called hypocretin might be a key factor. It's also known as orexin.
Hypocretin, that sounds familiar. Didn't we come across that when we were discussing the hypothalamus and its role in regulating sleep-wake cycles? Could there be a connection?
You're absolutely right. The hypothalamus, a small but mighty region deep within the brain, plays a crucial role in regulating a lot of things.
Well,
Sleep, hunger, thirst, body temperature. And hypocretin, produced by neurons in the hypothalamus, seems to be a key player in promoting wakefulness and regulating REM sleep.
so if someone has a deficiency in hypocretin, it could explain why they experience those overwhelming urges to sleep, even in the middle of the day.
Exactly. It's like their brain's wakefulness system is constantly short-circuiting, leading to those intrusive sleep episodes.
This is all so incredibly complex. It's amazing how these tiny chemical messengers can have such a profound impact on our sleep, our wakefulness, and our overall well-being. But we're not just talking about a handful of neurotransmitters here, are we? There are entire systems at play, right?
You're right. We've been focusing on individual neurotransmitters, but they don't act in isolation. They're part of these intricate neurotransmitter systems, complex networks of neurons that communicate using these chemical messengers.
So it's like a vast communication network with different neurotransmitter systems acting as specialized departments, each responsible for regulating a specific set of functions.
That's a great way to think about it. For example, the norepinephrine system originates in a part of the brainstem called the locus coeruleus, and it's like the brain's alertness and arousal center. It keeps you vigilant and responsive to your surroundings. Think of it as the brain's coffee shop, providing that jolt of energy to get you going.
So that's what's kicking in when I need to stay focused during a late-night study session or power through a long day at work.
Precisely. Then we have the serotonin system, which plays a key role in regulating mood, sleep, appetite, and even pain perception. It's like the brain's calming influence, helping to soothe anxiety, promote relaxation, and prepare you for sleep.
So if I'm feeling stressed or anxious, maybe I need a serotonin boost.
It's possible. Many antidepressants work by increasing serotonin levels in the brain. And then, of course, we have the dopamine system, often referred to as the brain's reward system. It plays a crucial role in motivation, pleasure, and even addiction.
Ah, dopamine, the neurotransmitter that gets all the glory. I've heard that it's involved in everything from falling in love to indulging in a delicious meal.
You're right, dopamine is often associated with pleasure and reward, but it's also involved in a wide range of other functions, including movement, attention, and learning. And abnormalities in the dopamine system have been linked to conditions like Parkinson's disease and schizophrenia.
It's fascinating how each of these neurotransmitter systems contributes to the intricate tapestry of brain activity and behavior. But I'm curious, we've been talking a lot about electrical signals and neurotransmitters, but how do these systems actually work at the cellular level? What's happening in the microscopic world of neurons?
Let's zoom in and take a closer look. Imagine a neuron as a tiny messenger,
Okay, tiny messenger.
transmitting information throughout the brain in the form of electrical signals. These signals travel along the neuron's long, slender axon, like a message speeding down a fiber optic cable.
So it's like a high-speed information highway, with neurons acting as the couriers.
Exactly. But when the electrical signal reaches the end of the axon, it encounters a tiny gap called the synapse, separating it from the next neuron in line. And that's where those neurotransmitters we've been talking about come into play.
So it's like an electrical to chemical conversion process?
Precisely. The arrival of the electrical signal at the axon terminal triggers the release of neurotransmitters into the synapse. These neurotransmitters then bind to specialized receptors on the receiving neuron, like keys fitting into locks.
And this binding process triggers a new electrical signal in the receiving neuron, continuing the chain of communication.
Exactly. It's a remarkable dance of electrical and chemical signaling, allowing neurons to communicate with each other and orchestrate the complex symphony of brain activity.
This is also incredibly intricate and interconnected. It's amazing how these tiny chemical messengers, released in fractions of a second, can have such a profound impact on our thoughts, emotions, actions, and even our sleep.
And we've only just begun to decipher the complex language of neurotransmission. There's still so much we're learning about how these systems interact, how they're influenced by genetics and environment, and how they can go awry in various neurological and psychiatric disorders.
It's like peering into a vast, uncharted territory, filled with endless possibilities for discovery. But before we venture too far into the unknown, I think it's time to bring our focus back to the topic at hand: sleep. We've talked about sleep stages, sleep disorders, and the neurotransmitter systems that regulate this essential aspect of our lives. But I'm realizing that we haven't talked much about the role of a key player we mentioned earlier, the reticular activating system, or RAS.
Ah, yes, the RAS. It's easy to get swept away by the fascinating details of neurotransmission, but the RAS is a crucial piece of the puzzle when it comes to understanding sleep and wakefulness.
Right. If I remember correctly, we described the RAS as the brain's air traffic control tower, filtering and prioritizing sensory information. But how does it actually do that? What's happening inside this mysterious network of neurons?
Imagine the RAS as this vast network of interconnected neurons, stretching from the brainstem up into the thalamus and cortex. It's constantly receiving a barrage of sensory input from all over the body, like a newsroom buzzing with incoming reports.
So it's like the brain's central intelligence agency, gathering information from all fronts.
Exactly. And just like a skilled intelligence analyst, the RAS has to sift through all that information, identify the most relevant pieces, and alert the rest of the brain to any potential threats or opportunities.
But how does it decide what's important enough to pay attention to? It seems like an overwhelming task.
The RAS has a remarkable ability to filter out irrelevant noise and focus on those signals that are most important for survival and well-being. It does this by constantly monitoring the incoming sensory stream for patterns, changes, and novel stimuli. Say, for example, you're walking through a forest and you hear a twig snap.
Oh, wait.
The RAS will immediately prioritize that sound, sending a surge of activation to the cortex, alerting you to the potential presence of danger.
So it's like the brain's built-in alarm system, constantly scanning the environment for signs of trouble.
Precisely. But the RAS isn't just about detecting threats, it also plays a crucial role in maintaining our level of alertness and arousal throughout the day.
So when we're feeling sleepy and sluggish, is it because our RAS is taking a break?
Not exactly. The RAS is always on duty.
Always on duty.
Yeah. But its activity levels fluctuate depending on various factors.
Like what?
Our sleep-wake cycle, stress levels, even our emotional state.
So when we're feeling alert and engaged, is it because our RAS is firing on all cylinders, sending a steady stream of excitatory signals to the cortex?
Exactly. A highly active RAS keeps us awake, attentive, and ready to respond to whatever comes our way. But as we approach bedtime, the RAS gradually reduces its activity, allowing us to transition smoothly into sleep.
So it's like the RAS is dimming the lights and turning down the volume on the outside world, creating a more tranquil internal environment conducive to sleep.
That's a great way to put it. And even during sleep, the RAS continues to filter sensory information, but its threshold for what it considers important is much higher. That's why we can sleep through most sounds, but will wake up instantly to the sound of our baby crying or the smoke alarm blaring.
So even when we're asleep, the RAS is still standing guard, protecting us from potential harm. It's like a tireless sentinel, constantly monitoring our internal and external environments, ensuring our safety and well-being.
Exactly. The RAS is a remarkable example of the brain's ability to adapt and respond to changing circumstances, ensuring our survival in a complex and ever-changing world.
This is all so incredibly fascinating. I never realized how complex and sophisticated this network of neurons is. It's like the brain's own personal bodyguard, air traffic controller, and intelligence analyst all rolled into one.
And we've only just begun to unravel the mysteries of the reticular activating system. There's still so much we have to learn about how it interacts with other brain regions, how it's influenced by various neurotransmitter systems, and how it contributes to a wide range of cognitive functions, including attention, memory, and even consciousness itself.
It's like peering into a vast, uncharted territory, filled with endless possibilities for discovery and understanding. I can't wait to see what insights future research will bring.
Me neither. The brain is truly the ultimate frontier, and we're just embarking on an incredible journey of exploration.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground already, but there's one more area I want to touch on before we wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the brain's electrical activity, but how does this relate to something you mentioned earlier, evoked potentials? We discussed them briefly in the context of sensory processing, but I'm wondering if they play a role in other cognitive functions, like memory and decision-making.
That's a great question. Evoked potentials are incredibly versatile tools for neuroscientists, providing a window into a wide range of cognitive processes, including memory, attention, language, and even emotional responses.
So it's not just about how the brain responds to sensory input. We can use evoked potentials to study how the brain makes decisions, solves problems, and even forms memories.
Exactly. For example, researchers can use a specific type of evoked potential called the P300 wave to study attention and working memory. The P300 is a positive-going electrical potential that occurs about 300 milliseconds after the presentation of a rare or unexpected stimulus.
So if I'm participating in an experiment where I have to press a button every time I see a red square, but then a blue square suddenly pops up, my brain will generate a P300 wave because it's surprised by the unexpected stimulus.
Precisely. The P300 wave is thought to reflect the brain's updating of its internal model of the world, adjusting to that new information.
That's fascinating. It's like the brain is constantly making predictions about what it expects to experience and then generating a P300 wave when those predictions are violated.
Exactly. And the amplitude and latency of the P300 wave can provide valuable insights into a person's cognitive abilities and even their overall brain health.
This is all so incredibly complex, but also incredibly exciting. It's like we're unlocking the secrets of the brain, one electrical signal at a time.
And we're just scratching the surface. There's still so much more to explore and discover about the brain's electrical symphony and how it orchestrates the complex tapestry of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Well, I'm definitely ready to delve deeper. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore the fascinating relationship between sleep and memory, the importance of dreams, and the impact of sleep deprivation on our physical and mental health.
I'm eager to continue our exploration and see what other insights we uncover.
Me too. Stay tuned, fellow brain enthusiasts. The journey continues in part 3. Welcome back to our deep dive into the electrical mysteries of the brain
And sleep. Yeah.
and sleep. I'm still reeling from all the intricate connections we've uncovered so far, from those vigilant evoked potentials to the bustling reticular activating system.
It's truly remarkable how much is happening beneath the surface of our awareness, especially when it comes to sleep. Speaking of which, there's one fascinating aspect we haven't explored yet:
What's that?
the intricate relationship between sleep and memory.
Oh, you mean besides the fact that I can never remember where I put my keys when I'm sleep deprived? But seriously, I've always heard that sleep is crucial for memory. I never really understood why. What's the connection?
It turns out that sleep isn't just about resting our bodies. It's also a critical time for our brains to consolidate memories, transferring information from short-term to long-term storage. Think of sleep as the brain's overnight librarian, carefully organizing and cataloging the day's experiences.
So while we're blissfully unaware, our brains are busy behind the scenes, creating a mental Dewey Decimal System for our memories. That's pretty impressive. But how does that actually work? What's happening at the neural level?
Research suggests that during sleep, particularly those deep, slow-wave sleep stages we talked about earlier, the brain reactivates the neural patterns associated with newly acquired information. It strengthens those connections and transfers the memories to more permanent storage sites in the cortex.
So it's like the brain is replaying the day's highlights, reinforcing those memories, and making them more accessible for future recall.
Exactly. And it's not just about strengthening existing connections. Sleep also seems to play a role in weakening irrelevant or outdated connections.
Ugh.
Yeah, essentially pruning back the neural undergrowth to maintain optimal brain function.
It's like the brain is decluttering its mental attic, getting rid of the things we no longer need and making room for new experiences. That's a comforting thought. But what about dreams? Where do they fit into all of this? Are they just random neural firings or do they serve a purpose?
Ah, the age-old question of dreams. They've captivated human imagination for millennia, and while we still don't have all the answers, research suggests that dreams might play a more significant role in our mental lives than we previously thought.
So it's not just about those bizarre and often nonsensical narratives that unfold in our minds while we sleep. There's a deeper meaning to all those dream adventures.
It seems that way. While some dreams might be simply a byproduct of random neural activity, others might reflect the brain's attempt to process emotions, consolidate memories, and even solve problems. Think of dreams as a kind of overnight therapy session where the brain can work through unresolved issues and make sense of complex experiences.
So those dreams that leave us feeling perplexed or even disturbed might actually be our brains trying to make sense of challenging emotions or events. That's a fascinating perspective.
Exactly. And some researchers believe that dreams might even play a role in fostering creativity. Think of all those artists, writers, and musicians who have credited dreams with inspiring their work. It's as if dreams can tap into a wellspring of subconscious creativity, allowing us to make connections and see things from a fresh perspective.
That's incredible. So maybe we shouldn't dismiss dreams as just meaningless ramblings. They might hold valuable insights into our emotional lives, our memories, and even our creative potential. But speaking of potential, what happens when we don't get enough sleep? We've talked about the benefits of sleep, but what about the consequences of sleep deprivation?
Sleep deprivation is a serious issue, and it's far more than just feeling tired and groggy. Chronic sleep loss can have a profound impact on both our physical and mental health.
So we're talking about more than just those dark circles under the eyes and the occasional caffeine crash. What are some of the more serious consequences?
Sleep deprivation can impair our cognitive function.
Impair how?
Well, it can make it difficult to focus, remember things, make sound decisions. It can also weaken our immune system, making us more susceptible to infections and illnesses. And over the long term, chronic sleep loss has been linked to an increased risk of serious health problems, including heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, and even certain types of cancer.
Wow, that's a pretty scary list. I knew sleep was important, but I didn't realize it was that crucial for our overall health.
It really is. Sleep is as essential for our well-being as a balanced diet and regular exercise. And yet, so many of us sacrifice sleep in the pursuit of work, social commitments, or even just mindless entertainment.
It's true. We live in a culture that often glorifies busyness and productivity, making it seem like sleep is a luxury we can't afford. But it sounds like we're doing ourselves a huge disservice by skimping on sleep.
Absolutely. Sleep is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's an investment in our physical and mental health, and it's something we should prioritize as much as any other aspect of our well-being.
Well, I know I'm going to be paying more attention to my sleep habits from now on. This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. I never realized how much I didn't know about sleep, and I'm definitely feeling inspired to make some positive changes.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Establishing a regular sleep-wake routine, creating a relaxing bedtime ritual, and optimizing your sleep environment can go a long way in improving the quality of your sleep.
Definitely taking notes. And as we wrap up our exploration of the electrical activity of the brain and its intricate relationship with sleep, what's one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think the most important message is that sleep is not just about resting our bodies, it's about allowing our brains to perform essential functions that are crucial for our cognitive, emotional, and physical well-being.
Well said. And I'd add that while we've learned a great deal about sleep, there's still so much we don't know. The brain is a complex and mysterious organ, and sleep is just one facet of its multifaceted nature. But the more we learn about sleep, the more we appreciate its profound importance in our lives. Before we sign off, we'll leave you with a final, thought-provoking question to ponder. Given what we've learned about the different types of brain waves and how they fluctuate during sleep, how do you think meditation or mindfulness practices might influence your brain activity? Sweet dreams, everyone, and stay curious.